30, and the number of people is then 233, like you have on the board, and the total population is 1.462. It doesn't change. So what is here is not exactly the same as the slides that you received, but it is. I now want to skip this topic, and I want to turn to the next one, which is that the drop on fertility that China has experienced will bring it now in a position to achieve its ambitious goal, namely to raise the standard of living for the whole population. The numbers involved, as we have heard, are staggering. I have one source in which it is stated that that there are about 600 to 700 million people that need to achieve a much higher standard of living as a kind of a target in the next 20 to 30 years. It means that hard to imagine changes have to be made in the various systems of China dealing with food supply, water, gas, electricity, and so on. Enormous efforts are required to increase the production in a very short time. Professor Peng has been very clear to us in mentioning the negative consequences of the rapid industrialization and economic growth for China, like the CO2 emissions and the ecological footprints. And China is working very hard to solve those problems and to provide for the pressing material needs such as energy and water. It also has developed mega projects to be implemented on a scale never shown before anywhere in the world. And I'll just give three examples. First is the production of alternative forms of energy. And I have read about major projects that are underway in various locations to increase, by means of wind and solar energy plants, to increase the electricity and to phase out coal-fired energy. And the aim is, the very ambitious aim is to get energy from this wind and solar energy equivalent to 100 large coal-fired power plants by 2020. I read about this in an article in the New York Times, and I wanted to check whether what was really going on in China, and I looked at Google Earth, and those projects are starting in the Gobi Desert, and I looked anywhere in the Gobi Desert, but I could not find any construction so far. It could quite well be that the Google Earth is 3 years later, and that there is actually a lot happening right now. The second pressing need for China is that its acquisition of raw materials for the Chinese economy, and it is working very hard to get those raw materials from not only China itself, but from many countries in the world, from the south to the north and the northwest. Its most ambitious component is a project in which water flowing from rivers coming from the Himalayas and the Tibetan plateau, they go south, is still in China, then there is a sharp bend and they go into India, and where the bend is, there are extremely huge projects planned to divert the water first to the rivers in China and then to the north. That's not yet implemented, but is it's in the planning stage. And it's also a controversial project because it will mean that India and Bangladesh will receive considerably less water. On the other hand, China's government and leaders have said that without the need to get water to the north and the northwest, everything will fail. It is also for China a very important problem. The last slide. Professor Peng provided an important example of a country with extremely urgent and pressing population problems, and it is useful for us to know how it has managed those problems and what its plans are for the future. And I also have mentioned the challenges ahead. We see also here how the sheer size of the population whose standard of living needs to be improved is an important element why those projects are so huge and massive. And it is also clear that implementation of several of those projects have certainly regional implications and may also even have global implications.
Thank you. Well, we heard a very interesting address. We had a lot of information, and I suppose that among you there will be questions regarding not so much the information, but regarding the implications of it. And now is your opportunity to ask these questions to Professor Ping and maybe also to Professor van Ginneken. Who wants to have the floor? Yes.
Okay, thank you. I have one informational question to Professor Peng. Thank you very much for the talk. You are openly debating things which are in Holland taboo to talk about, so it's admirable that you talk in this frank way about Chinese population problems. I heard some things about that the going down of the fertility rate around 1980, I don't know the exact years, was prior to the official one-child policy, and that's something that surprised me a bit. So maybe you could clarify something about that, the timing between the slowing down of the birth rate and the official one-child politic.
Could you please give your name and the institution or
Quintijn Hogenboom. I am active in GroenLinks and also with the Footprint I'm active.
So, I think in my the slides we can see that in China actually the rapid fertility decline happened in the 1970s. At that time, the basic population program is called later, longer, and fewer policy. So basically, it's kind of the two children are universally regarded as the best family size at that time. So during the 1970s, China total fertility rate declined from 5.8 in the year 1970 to the 2.8 in the year 1979. So that's the rapidest the fertility decline happening in China. So then we can see in the 1980s, so actually we see the fluctuation of the fertility. Actually fertility not continue to decline from 2.8